So get this. There's a guy who survived being lost at sea for 438 days. 438 days. That's over a year alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And the craziest part? He actually lived to tell the story. This man's name is José Salvador Alvarenga. He was a fisherman from El Salvador, but at the time he was living in Mexico and working on a small fishing boat. He wasn't some adventurer or survival guru. He was just a regular guy trying to make a living catching fish. But in 2012, he ended up in one of the most insane real-life survival stories. Here's how it all happened. It was November 17, 2012. Jose and a younger crewmate, a 22-year-old guy named Ezequiel Cordoba, set out from a village in Chiapas, Mexico. Their boat, a tiny 25-foot fiberglass fishing vessel. No cabin, no shelter, just a simple open-deck boat with a single motor. The plan was fairly routine. They were supposed to go about 50 miles offshore, catch some sharks, and then return in less than a day. That's it, a totally normal fishing trip. But then everything went wrong. First, the weather turned ugly. They got hit with a massive storm in the Pacific Ocean. Imagine being on a little boat, no roof, no cover, with giant waves smashing around you. The rain was so heavy that visibility basically dropped to zero. The storm just kept coming and they couldn't navigate their way back. To make things worse, their motor broke down, so now they're floating. No power, no control, just at the mercy of the ocean. They tried to radio for help, but their radio battery died before they could get a response. That was basically their last lifeline. They were stranded. At first, they probably thought, okay, someone will come and find us. But every day they drifted further into the open sea, away from the coast. And let me say, once you're out there in the Pacific, it's nothing but blue water in every direction. No landmarks, no other boats, no land, just emptiness. And here's the brutal truth. Fishermen get lost at sea more than you'd think, and most of them are sadly never found. Search parties go for a few days, and if they don't find anything, they call it off. That is exactly what happened to Jose. Authorities searched, but after 2 days with no sign of the boat, they declared him dead. His family even held a memorial service for him, but he wasn't dead. Now, here's where things get insane. How do you survive for over a year in the open ocean with no supplies? First off, food. Obviously, they had some fishing gear since they were out there to catch some sharks. They managed to catch fish and birds with their hands and makeshift tools. They'd eat raw fish, sometimes drinking the blood to stay hydrated. They'd grab turtles when they could, cracking them open for both meat and fluids. Rainwater was their main source of drinking water, and when it didn't rain, Jose drank urine or squeezed moisture out of sea creatures. I know, it's disgusting, but when it's a life or death situation, you'll do anything. At first, the two of them were in this together, but after a few months, things took a dark turn. Ezequiel, the younger guy, refused to eat raw birds and turtles. He couldn't stomach it. Eventually, after not eating for too long, he got sick. His body just couldn't handle the starvation. After about 4 months lost at sea, he died. Jose was devastated. He had spent months talking to this guy, trying to keep hope alive, and suddenly he was completely alone. Jose said he even spoke to the body for a while, so he didn't lose his sanity. Eventually, he had to commit his friend's body to the ocean. From then on, it was just him. Think about that. You're alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's just you, the sun, and endless water. And that lasted not for days, not for weeks, but for over a year. Jose's survival depended on improvisation. He used empty plastic bottles as containers to collect rainwater. He fashioned tools from bits of the boat, from turtle shells, and and even fish bones. To shield himself from the scorching sun, he crawled under the fiberglass for shade. He fought off depression by constantly thinking about his family, imagining being reunited, and promising himself he would survive. One of the wildest parts? He actually saw ships in the distance a few times. Huge cargo ships would pass by, and he would scream, wave, and hold up signals, but no one ever saw him. The ocean is just too vast, and a tiny fishing boat in the middle of it is basically invisible. Currents carried him west across the Pacific, away from Mexico, across thousands of miles. By the time he finally hit land, he had travelled about 6,700 miles. Now, here's the big moment. January 30th, 2014. After 438 days lost at sea, Jose's boat finally washed up on a remote coral reef in the Marshall Islands. A couple living on the island spotted him and couldn't believe what they were seeing. He looked like a castaway straight out of a movie, with a long beard, hair grown wild, super thin, and his skin was burnt dark by the sun. But he was alive. When he was rescued, doctors were blown away. He was dehydrated and weak, but still alive. After being declared dead more than a year ago, he walks back into civilization, and of course, the media went nuts. People compared him to the movie Castaway, calling him the real-life Tom Hanks. His story spread worldwide. At first, some doubted him, saying it sounded impossible, but scientists and survival experts backed it up. Everything he described was consistent with ocean currents, survival techniques, and even his physical condition when he was found. He gave interviews about what kept him going, and his answer was simple. He wanted to see his family again. That hope, combined with sheer instinct, was what kept him alive day after day. But this story doesn't have a neat ending like a Hollywood movie. After his rescue, Jose faced some crazy twists. For one, the family of his deceased crewmate actually sued him, accusing him of cannibalism. They said no way could he have survived without eating Ezekiel. But Jose denied it, and there was never any evidence. He stuck to his story. He survived on fish, birds, turtles, and rainwater. Later, he co-wrote a book about his ordeal called 438 Days, an extraordinary, true story of survival at sea. It became a bestseller, with tons of people fascinated by how someone could endure that long in one of the most harsh environments on Earth. And here's a fun fact. Jose said during the darkest moments, he talked to God, his family, and even his soccer team back at home in his mind. He created imaginary conversations so he wouldn't go insane. That's how desperate the human mind gets when isolated. But after he was rescued, things weren't easy. Fame came fast, but so did skepticism and lawsuits. He struggled with survivor's guilt, haunted by the death of his crewmate. He also suffered from nightmares about being back at sea. Psychologists call it ocean trauma. Still, Jose's story is one of the longest known cases of survival at sea in history, and it just shows how much a human can endure when forced to the edge. And the wildest thing is, he didn't set out to be a hero or survival legend. He was just a fisherman going to work. Wrong place, wrong storm, wrong time. And it turned out to be one of the most unbelievable survival stories ever recorded. So yeah, next time you're having a bad day, just remember, you're not Jose, stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, eating raw turtles and drinking rainwater for over a year. 438 days, one man lost at sea, and somehow still alive.